July of 2022, we headed out on a trip aboard the Polaris Supreme. We had booked this trip almost a year in advance. We had no idea if the fish were going to be biting or not. And of course, the bluefin bite completely died for a few weeks ahead of our trip, and we were expecting the absolute worst. The night before our trip, there were a few fish being caught, and the captain was actually quite optimistic. But the truth was, we had no idea what to expect. Next thing we know, there's 6 to 8 fish hanging over the rails, and it's complete and utter chaos. And finally, the first bluefin comes over the rail. Then Andy hooks up, and as soon as he starts getting his fish close to the boat, the shark decides to bite its tail off.
Oh shit.
Did you hook it also? You got his hook in there too? We're fishing with a 100-pound test, and our reels have the drag set to pull at around 30 pounds. So with that much fish pulling so hard, you have to lean the rod on the rail like a lever. It's really the only way that we stand a chance to be able to reel these fish in. This fish was probably only 75 pounds, but it was easily the largest fish I've ever caught in my life. Before we knew it, we had 50 or more fish on the boat, and the night had barely even started. At this point, it's probably 2 o'clock in the morning. We've been fishing all night, and suddenly we start getting into the really, really big bluefin tuna. This fish is easily 175 pounds, which means that the fish is probably about 6 feet long, or as tall as most of the people on the boat. Now it's Gabe's turn to catch his fish. Notice that he's on the starboard side of the bow as he's fighting the fish. He's gonna go around the front. Next thing you know, he's fighting on the port side. And by the time he lands the fish, he's gonna be on the stern, and it's gonna have taken him around the entire boat. That's totally normal, as these fish can take you around the boat multiple times before you actually land it.
Oh yeah.
Notice the boat on the horizon going up and down because not only is it windy, but the swells are easily 8 to 10 feet high this night. On the first night we fished until the sun came up, and then we finally went to bed. And this is from the second night, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and everybody is hooked up on a fish on the rail. It's complete and utter chaos, and we're totally dead tired, but we're fishing through the night again. Andy gets hooked up again, but at this point, he's so tired that he's on his knees with the rod up against the rail, because it's really the only way that you have enough strength to be able to pull these things in. Andy fights the fish for quite a bit of time, and he finally gets the fish close to the boat. We can start seeing that this one is a really big bluefin. They put the gaffs in it, they get it on the boat, and it's a 150-pound fish, the biggest fish that Andy's ever caught. Next, it's my turn at landing a large bluefin, and as soon as I hooked it, I knew this was going to be a really big fish. I fought it for about 15 minutes, and it took me around the boat multiple times. At one point, the deckhand even gaffed the fish, but the bluefin ripped the gaff out of his hands, and it peeled out about 200 feet of line. The gaff was gone, the fish was still on the line, thankfully, but I wouldn't see that fish again for another 15 minutes. By this time I was so tired that I could barely even pick up a fish to take a picture of it, but it ended up being the biggest fish I ever caught, coming in at 175 pounds. We fished 3 nights in a row, all night long, till the sun came up, and we were dead tired. Thankfully we got our limits of bluefin on those 3 nights. We spent the rest of the time going around Mexico looking for yellowtail. But the highlight of the trip was definitely the bluefin fishing. We arrived back at the docks around 5 a.m. and unloaded the fish. The boat ended up with limits of bluefin, which comes out to 6 bluefin for 25 people, so the total number of fish was 150.
I don't know.
The biggest fish was about 185 pounds, and I think there probably was like a dozen fish that were caught over 150 pounds.
Here's my fish.
We also caught a bunch of yellowtail, but the biggest ones were maybe only 15 pounds or so. There's a few Dorado mixed in as well, but the highlight of the trip was what we came for, which was the bluefin tuna. After 5 days of fishing and 3 nights of fishing all night and getting absolutely no sleep, there was no way we were going to take all this fish home and clean it ourselves. So we took it down to the local fish processors and let them do a professional job cleaning them. All we had to do is go pick up the fish already frozen and put them in a cooler. But unfortunately, I ended up having to pay a really big bill. Even after giving away some of my fish, I brought home about 350 pounds of tuna and unfortunately a $550 bill. But I guess that's the price you pay when you have the absolute best fishing trip of your life.